I am delighted to be joined by Armando Ianucci, presumably one of the hardest working men in the business, given that you have two epic projects launching sort of simultaneously. But we should begin with congratulations, because like me, your activity on Twitter and your low-level political activism over the last few years has been immeasurably successful. All of the missions you set yourself have been gloriously achieved.
Yes, I tweeted massively for tactical voting and let's make sure he doesn't get a huge majority, and that was greeted with complete silence. And I actually thought low-level celebrities telling people how they should vote would be something that appealed to the country. But clearly, in this particular instance, that doesn't work.
No, but luckily you've got a career to distract yourself with.
There is that. But for how long? Given what they're about to do to the BBC, he says satirically.
Watch this space. You're not thinking of applying for the big job, then?
Or the Director General's job. Yeah,
you could do worse. There'd be a symmetry to it.
When I looked at the list of problems the new Director General had to face, i.e., extinction by the government and equal pay and every legal thing going for everything they've said wrong about anyone, I thought I'll stick to the jokes.
Seems reasonable. Where do you want to start? With David Copperfield or with Avenue 5?
Shall we go for starters?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Let's order a drink first, shall we?
A little cocktail.
No, I am that confused. These two projects were, it's not like I was working on them simultaneously. David Copperfield we shot 2 summers ago.
Oh, really?
And Avenue 5 last summer.
Right.
But just like 2 sort of oil tankers in the entire Atlantic Ocean, with all of that ocean to play with, they crashed into each other this week. So here I am talking about 2 different shows. I always feel when I'm talking about one of them that I'm kind of cheating on the other.
It's my favourite child syndrome.
So
anyway, let's start with Avenue 5, then, which is the small screen, albeit it's HBO. So this is a big change in the industry, isn't it? That somebody like you would once have seen. I mean, Veep and the thick of it being TV shows in the traditional sense.
Yes.
But now TV is challenging cinema.
Yes, it is. I mean, the screens are getting bigger and the production values are getting bigger and the budgets are getting bigger. And actually the ideas are kind of getting more ambitious. Yes. And you find film directors, like Scorsese, going to Netflix, doing TV shows and so on. Although HBO is kind of traditional, really. They don't drop the show all in one go, which is just as well since I haven't finished editing the final episode yet. They do it on it goes out on a Sunday night in America and here on Sky One on a Wednesday night. But HBO are also kind of good. They once they've bought the concept, they kind of just let you get on with it, really.
Which is important to you, isn't it?
Well, I think so, yeah. I mean, it's not that I want to hide it from people and say they can't interfere. It's just you want to know that those who are going to supervise it have your best interest and the best interest of the show at heart, and that's what HBO have.
So I mean, it's a space tourism comedy set 40 years in the future, which
yes,
at
you say
first
that
glance doesn't sound like typical Armando Ianucci territory.
It starts off like that.
Yes.
It is actually a crushing existential nightmare, but with a light touch. Really, it's basically I've been looking at having done Veep and prior to that, the thick of it, in 10 years of looking at in detail at politics. I wanted really to look at people, like crowd behaviour, the madness of crowds, groupthink, how we there's something very unnervingly unpredictable going on across the country and across the world. We're all slightly anxious. We're all voting in a kind of, let's just do this. I know it's stupid, but let's just do this anyway to send a message. That kind of, and no one could quite put their finger on it. And yet there's this impending apocalypse that one little girl is sticking her hand up and saying, look, the catastrophe is coming. What are you going to do about it? And we're all looking the other way, having a row amongst each other. So I wanted to tap in on that. So I thought, let's put a pressure cooker in space. Let's put 5,000 passengers, 1,500 crew, 6,500 people. Let's put them in a ship that's meant to cruise around Saturn back in 8 weeks, but something goes wrong. They're stuck up there for years. What do they do? Not only how do they survive and get back, but what kind of society do they then form, really? And what questions do they start asking themselves?
So, the lazy observation would be that you're not making a political show after as you say, the Veep and the thick of it. But actually, you are. I mean, it's beyond.
Well, I suppose social politics and
meta-political.
and looking at how the public works as well, really.
And let me be the gazillionth person to suggest that you can't do political satire at the moment, even if you wanted to, which you presumably don't, because reality is madder than anything you could dream up.
That kind of comedy relies on there being a set of conventions that then when people depart from them, you can point out how they've departed. But if there are no longer any conventions, if anything goes, if you have a president who says, I can shoot someone in the face and still get away with it, if you have a party that changes its name to FactCheckUK for a bit of a laugh, then nothing's left really. So it's interesting. I find that the comics who are best adapted to tackling what's happening today tend to be the journalistic ones. John Oliver has a whole team of researchers, and he has an argument as well as a kind of series of one-liners. It's almost like if the comedians are the entertainers, then the entertainers, if the politicians are the entertainers, then the comedians are becoming the journalists.
There's some truth in that.
And indeed, journalists are becoming prime ministers. That's the other thing. So the whole thing is just, everyone's moved around
we're all doomed, which is actually the theme of the new show. We should quickly talk about David Copperfield as well, because I know you're short of time. It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
It will draw, I mean, given this the story that's in the news cycle at the moment with the Lawrence Fox off Lewis on Question Time, and today complaining about there being a Sikh in Sam Mendes' 1917 film. It will draw. See, I hate this because I want to ask you about the fact that it's cast blind. You've cast actors in all of the big roles.
Yes.
So the man playing David Copperfield happens to be Dev Patel of Asian extraction, but clearly you didn't say let's cast a brown actor. But we're living in a climate where you're going to get asked this a lot. I don't really want to be one of the people that asks you about it, but I feel I have to.
To sort of alleviate that, I've found that people ask about it prior to seeing the film and then forget about it after seeing the film.
Bingo. Which is the point.
And also with Dev, I knew I wanted to make David Copperfield, and the only person I could think of was Dev Patel. He just embodied the character so perfectly in the way he acts and in his sort of spirit and demeanour, really. And if he'd said no, I'm not sure we would have made the film, really.
I heard you say that before, and I haven't seen it yet. So,
I urge you to see it.
Well, I'm obviously going.
But you'll see how. I mean, he's in practically every scene. He's in it for 2 hours, and he has to play. He has to do comedy, slapstick, impressions, drama, melodrama,
and he can do the lot.
And he does the lot. Physical comedy, visual comedy,
and the rest of the cast is just breathtaking.
I mean, they're amazing.
Does anyone ever say no to you, Armando Ianucci?
Oh, people do.
Really?
But that's usually if I'm pointing a gun at them and saying, hand over your money.
Uriah Heep, it must be a joy to
Uriah
cast.
Heep, Ben Wishaw's Uriah Heep, and he has a great time.
Sensational. And Peggotty, I mean, everybody in it is you also have collaborators that you like working with.
Yes.
They pop up in both of these.
Yes, so Simon Blackwell, I co-wrote it with. Peter Capaldi, who I've worked with a lot, is Mr. Micawber in this. Hugh Laurie is in this and in Avenue 5. But I like to build up a kind of... Everything I do, I like to work with new people and new writers, but also carry on with writers and performers that I've worked with about it. So you get this sense of a kind of constantly renewing troupe of people. A rep, it is a rep,
it's the original sense.
And I'd rather do that than, run a production company that's making 15 different shows and I can only get really involved in one of them. I rather like the idea of having this long-running rep company that's been going for
works, doesn't it?
nearly 30
people trust
years.
you, and if they trust you, you can get them to do things that other people might not be able to get them to do. So
I'll bear that in mind.
You're very welcome.
I'll try and think of some things I can get them to do that I haven't thought of now.
Finally, then, even once you've got your stellar track record, are you? Is it fingers crossed? I asked Ricky Gervais this question about Afterlife. Is it you still fingers crossed for another series on Avenue 5?
Absolutely. I think
that's how it works.
It's that way madness lies if you just want to coast on the last thing you did. I remember doing these sort of school talks and so on, and one kid asked, the opening question was, whenever you go onto a new project, how do you overcome your fear of failure? Which is not a question any journalist has ever asked. I thought that's an amazingly
brilliant question.
Fantastic question. I had to think about it, and I think my answer, what I do is I try and go into it trying to act as if this is my first project, going into it with all that kind of energy and enthusiasm that you do when you're kind of starting off. Because if you start thinking, well, I'm 56 now, I can stop if I want, and just just try and get the royalties on old Alan Partridge programmes.
Which are probably considerable.
No, it's BBC Worldwide. It's not considerable.
There you go. Go and see this film because the Alan Partridge royalties are not generous enough.
Every now and then a cheque for like 36.20 comes in.